If you look on Google Maps in Japan, you'll find that addresses are weird. You'll find incomplete addresses, English and Japanese mixed together, and the order of some addresses to be completely out of whack. Also, the reason for making this video is because my detached single-family home has an identical address to that of my neighbors. Like, why? And how does the post office even tell that apart? In this video, I hope to clarify the format and structure of a Japanese address and do a shallow dive into the history of it so you don't get as confused as I did. You're watching Japan Reality. Let's get started. Before we jump into the beast that is Japanese addresses, let's begin by grounding ourselves and reviewing address formats of my most watched regions, which is understandably the Anglosphere. Note that I'm only going to follow the general format of the address and not every minute detail. The USA, the one with which I'm most accustomed, has street number, street name, apartment number if relevant, city, state, and postal code. Australia has essentially the same format as the USA. The only difference is that they put the unit or apartment number at the front of the address before the street number. Canada is the same as Australia, but instead of a / they use a dash. With the UK, in the random place I checked, there was another subsection between the street name and city that identified which sector of the city that it was in. However, this wasn't the case with all addresses in the UK. Also, if I got any of these address formats wrong, feel free to read me in the comments with this specific definition. These addresses are mostly decided by the front width of land adjacent to a road, called frontage. A lot is then created from this frontage width, and a number is added. At least in America, zoning laws, or what you're allowed to build in certain areas, are really strict, so you'll almost never have two homes on one lot or commercial property in a residential area. On to the Japanese address. For those of you that skipped this part, welcome. Japan uses two addressing systems, the Chiban method and the Jukyo Hyoji method. The former was introduced many centuries ago, and the latter recently in the 1960s. Jukyo Hyoji is used by the vast majority of cities in Japan, and that's where you'll probably go as a tourist or even your first place as a resident, so that's where our example address will be based on. Here is the address to the Samoyed Cafe in Tokyo. Tokyo to Shibuya-ku, Jingu mae, 3 chome, 21番、21号、アリスト原宿 B1. In the table on the screen, I've broken down the address into administrative divisions. Unlike the West, which goes from smallest division to largest, when an address is written in Japanese, it starts from the largest division to the smallest. We're going to ignore the postal code for now. Prefecture is the largest division in Japan, which can be thought of as a US state or Canadian province. In this address, that is Tokyo Prefecture. The next level is city, town, village, or special ward. In this case, it would be the special ward of Shibuya. If you've watched any other videos on Japan or Tokyo, you may have heard of the term 23 special wards. These special wards only exist in Tokyo, and in the modern day can be considered cities. If you look at the Shibuya Ward website, they even call themselves a city in English. The next division is the neighborhood, Jingu mae. This is just the name of a location passed down through the ages. Afterwards, the neighborhood is divided into large blocks called Chome. This address is in the third Chome of the neighborhood Jingu mae. Within Chome, there are sub-blocks called Ban, and this address is the 21st Ban in the third Chome of the neighborhood Jingu mae. Within Ban, you have another sub-block called Go, and funnily enough, this is also number 21. To complete the address for apartments or commercial buildings with multiple tenants, you add the building name and floor or room number. In this case, the building's name is called Aristo Harajuku, and the cute fluffy Samoyed dogs are in the basement B1. The postal code is not attached to the address like it is in the West. If a form asks you to write it down, it's usually in a separate box preceded by the Japanese postal symbol, which is a T with a line on top. I will not be covering the specifics of a postal code, but as fate would have it, CGP Grey just made a great video on postal codes, so check that out if you're interested. If you're watching this video and you're unable to write in Japanese, that's perfectly fine. You're allowed to write a Japanese address with the English alphabet. If you're writing with the English alphabet, you'd actually switch the format around to that of the West, smallest division to largest. The Samoyed Cafe address would become Aristo Harajuku B1 3 21 21 Jingu Mae Shibuya-ku Tokyo to. The B1 can also go in front of the building name if you prefer. If we switch gears back to the address written in Japanese, we can actually take some liberties with the format of the part in red. Currently, what I have on screen is one of the most correct ways to write an address. The Chome number in kanji, the ban and go kanji preceded by Arabic numbers, and the building name plus floor. However, you can actually cut this down significantly when writing your address on a form or online portal. The first thing you can do is change the san chome or 3 chome to Arabic numbers as can be seen on the screen. You can then get rid of chome, ban, and go in its entirety and replace them with dashes. This is the most common format that people, including me, use. Lastly, you can remove the building name and just add B1 with a dash at the end. To be honest, in real life, I haven't seen the case of adding a floor number to the end with a dash, but I have seen plenty of times where you add an apartment number, say number 455, to the end with a dash like so. However, whenever possible, it's a good idea to write your address out in full. It's good practice, and the post office will thank you. In the case of inputting an address into an online payment portal, you may come across something like this, where there is a search button next to the postal code. When I input the Samoyed postal code, it fills up the address up to the neighborhood of Jingu Mae. Occasionally, some online portals will fill in the chome number as well, so be careful as to not double the chome when inputting your address. There's a hefty set of rules as well when it comes to writing an address on a proper letter, but I won't be covering that in this video due to the added complexity. Sorry. Hopefully that section gave enough information for people that were in an address conundrum. But that doesn't even come close to telling the full story of Japanese addresses and why there's even 2 systems, and also why my neighbors have the same address as I do. And I live in a single family home. I don't get it. Or I mean, I get it now, and I'm going to tell you, but I didn't get it at the time. To explain the Chiban method and Jukyo Hyoji method in its entirety, we have to start from the beginning. Not that far back. Starting once again from the largest administrative divisions, we have prefectures. 47 of them, in fact. These prefectures, which numbered in the hundreds, were cut down to just 47 during the Meiji Restoration in the late 1800s. In Japan, instead of using the all-encompassing prefecture, like English, there are 4 types of large divisions: Todofuken, To, Do, Fu, and Ken. In modern-day Japan, we have 1 To, Tokyo-to, 1 Do, Hokkaido, 2 Fu, Osaka-fu, and Kyoto-fu, and we have 43 other Ken, adding up to 47. In the past, these suffixes signified different powers bestowed to these areas, but in the modern day, they all act in approximately the same fashion. And with that, I want to let you know that Tokyo is not a city. It's a prefecture. In the past, it was a city, but it was abolished and the Tokyo Prefecture and the special 23 wards were created. When someone refers to Tokyo, they probably refer to those 23 special wards. However, the whole western half of Tokyo is comprised of towns, cities, and villages. And then if you go off the coast of Japan to the east, there's many small islands that are still technically a part of Tokyo Prefecture. So keep that in the back of your head. In the case of Osaka-fu and Kyoto-fu, there is Osaka City and Kyoto City respectively within their borders. We can see the same thing happen with Ken as well, how within Hiroshima Ken, there is Hiroshima City. The next level of governments is Shikusoncho, cities, special wards, towns, and villages. In the Samoyed Cafe address, you may have noticed that after Tokyo, there was a dash to, and after Shibuya, there was a dash ku. Those are there to signify what administrative division type it is. If we look on Google Maps, zoomed out, it'll just show, in this case, Sendai, a city in northern Japan. But as soon as we zoom in, the kanji for city, shi, is added. There are some exceptions like how Hokkaido doesn't have a dash, but if you're in doubt about your own area, contact your local city hall. Cities can become what's called seirei shite toshi, or designated cities. These are cities that typically have 500,000 inhabitants or more. These cities are required to create wards called ku within themselves to divvy up government functions even further. An example of this would be Sendaishi's Wakabayashi Ward and Aoba Ward. Finally, we have Chome, or more broadly speaking, the neighborhood. For example, Tsukiji, home of the famous Tsukiji Fish Market, is a neighborhood in Chuo Ward in Tokyo Prefecture. In the case of the neighborhood name, we do not add -chome to the end. And there we have it. Minus the numbers, we have a basis for an address. So if I loop back the Samoyed Cafe address, I can fill out the chart like so. Up to the neighborhood name, Chiban and Jukyo Hyoji are essentially the same. From here is where it differs. On to the history of Chiban. That's the one that came first, so that's what I'll start with. This addressing system is still used in low population centers to this day. Before the central government swooped in the late 1800s during the Meiji Restoration, the local feudal clan, or han, divided their land into lots, called Chiban. This was used for easy cataloging and taxation. After the central government took over, they actually kept the system. And here's what that actually looked like. In its current state, we see that all the Chiban are lined up in numerical order, and if a delivery person were to show up, they can easily find a specific Chiban. However, land can change hands, be joined together, or be cut into pieces, and we will soon find out why the Chiban method wasn't too great of an idea. The rules to land expansion and division were simple. If two Chiban were to be joined together, it would take the smaller number. If one Chiban were to be split, a helper number called shigo or edaban is attached. Now let's bring it back to our main example. Chiban 2 wants to split and sell their property. Two Chibans are created, 2-1 and 2-2. Chiban 6 wants to join together with Chiban 5. 5 is less than 6, so Chiban 6 disappears. Chiban 5 splits into 4, creating 5-1, 5-2, 5-3, and 5-4. Chiban 3 and 4 join together. 3 takes precedence and 4 disappears. Chiban 5-2 splits again. Because Chiban 5-3 was already taken, as well as Chiban 5-4, it takes the next available Chiban number of 5-5. Chiban 2-1 and 5-3 join together. The lower Chiban number of 2-1 takes precedence. And let's say that this is our present day neighborhood. If you were looking for Chiban 5-4, where would you even start? Nothing is in the same order, and newcomers would have a difficult time finding the right address. This is a rather mild example of lot changes under the Chiban method, but over hundreds of years, with new roads and even rivers slightly changing course, this proved to be a bit of a problem, especially in densely populated areas. And to make things even worse, you're allowed to build multiple buildings on one Chiban. So you have multiple buildings with the same address. I've appended the Chiban numbering system to the table I made earlier for your viewing pleasure. An example address that uses the Chiban method should be on your screen now. Gifu-ken, Gifu-shi, Sagiyama, 1769 no 2, where 1769 is the Chiban and 2 is the shigo or edaban, which tells us that at some point in time, this Chiban was split from a larger one. The way to write the most correct Chiban depends on your jurisdiction, but here are a couple ways you could see it written. You may have noticed that instead of writing 1769 Chiban, it's written 1769 Banchi. And the reason for that, I can't tell you. There were so many different things online, and Jukyo Hyoji and Chiban mixed together. Like everyone, even Japanese people, are still kind of confused on the addressing system. The reason I use this address as an example is because this singular Banchi had 250 homes on it. Yes, 250 single-family homes. The address has since been updated to Jukyo Hyoji, but in the past, pizza places and even the fire department had to have a special map to find places. So at this point, I thought, aha, that's the reason why I share an address with my neighbors. But, dear viewer, I was wrong. My address uses the Jukyo Hyoji system. And with that, we arrive at the final chapter of our story. As we saw with the Gifu address, having multiple hundreds of houses on one plot of land with the same address is outright dangerous. Like, some ambulances might not even be able to find you in time. So, in the 1960s, to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again, Japan implemented Jukyo Hyoji, the Japan addressing system. This would make what happened in Gifu a thing in the past and make Japan a more unified, developed country. However, due to the huge bureaucratic cost of changing thousands of addresses across the country, it was implemented in select areas, mostly in very densely populated areas such as Tokyo and Osaka. The first thing this new system did was merge many neighborhoods within cities and towns and then split them into Chome, or large blocks. Bringing out my spreadsheet skills again, we had neighborhoods A, B, C, and D. Let's say that this new neighborhood became neighborhood A for simplicity. This new neighborhood was cut into easily manageable pieces called Chome, based on geographic and historical lines. In the neighborhood of Ogikubo, in Suginami Ward in Tokyo Prefecture, 5 Chome and 4 Chome are cut off by the train line to the north and major avenues to the west. Once again, from here on out, the video is going to get a bit more complicated. After joining neighborhoods and creating Chome, there were 2 methods within Jukyo Hyoji to create the next set of numbers: Gaiku Hoshiki and Doro Hoshiki. Doro Hoshiki, or the road method, is similar to that of the USA or Canada, where the road is the center of the block and the houses on both sides of it would be numbered. Because roads in Japan aren't named or don't have easily memorizable names, this method didn't take off, and in the end, only 2 cities implemented this: Higashine City in Yamagata Prefecture and Urakawa Town in Hokkaido. In Higashine City, we can see that Jinmachi E Dannaka Dori is at the center of the block, with properties on either side. The rest of Japan opted for Gaiku Hoshiki, or the block method, which isn't all too different from Chiban. In this case, a sub-block called Ban is created, and this is walled in by roads, train lines, rivers, or geographic and historical lines similar to Chome. If we head back to Ogikubo on Google Maps, within 5 Chome, we can see that Ban 17 is walled in by roads on all sides. Once this Ban is created, the frontage around the lot is measured, and goal, sub-blocks were created and numbered in ascending order around the Ban. Here is the final table for Jukyo Hyoji. In this picture I found on Musashino City's website, which is in Tokyo Prefecture, every 20 meters a goal was created. And here we can see that the address of your home depends not on the placement of the home itself, but where your entrance is. And that, folks, was the culprit. My address is in the same goal created by an arbitrarily decided frontage width, and thus making my address the same as my neighbor's. The Samwad Cafe address should make clear sense to you now. Hopefully. This is my first ultra long video and I'm really afraid that I didn't get the point across. I've answered why I share addresses with my neighbors, but I haven't told you how the post office or even delivery folks tell them apart. You are allowed to add a helper number to differentiate your house from the others, but that typically isn't done. In reality, you use your last name. I didn't know this in the beginning, and we only had our address out front. And in the days following, we got numerous complaints from post office workers and delivery workers saying that they couldn't find our address. Once I added my name, there's been no issues since. But having your name plastered on your house seems like a security issue. If addresses can be the same, then how does the city actually tell the houses apart? Well, for that, they have a special, separate system that they use to do that, which won't be covered in this video. Anticlimactic. I'm sorry. To make sure I don't get reamed in the comments following this specific definition, by the way, guys, I want to go over a couple exceptions. Kyoto City in Kyoto Prefecture has a dense enough population to warrant the use of Jukyo Hyoji, but they don't because tradition. It was so hard to understand that I'm not confident in telling you how it works. Maybe a different video sometime in the future. Large cities in Hokkaido have a system called Jo to pinpoint an address even further. If a building or area is big, goal, the sub-block, is sometimes not added at all. Some neighborhoods do not use Chome and just use ban and go. The neighborhood of Sakuragaoka-cho in Shibuya Ward in Tokyo Prefecture does not use Chome for whatever reason, even though it is in the most densely populated part of the country. Some cities, like Ome City in Tokyo Prefecture, use Jukyo Hyoji, but when they decided their ban, they continued to use the old Chiban number, which is why you see ban in the hundreds. If implemented properly, ban rarely goes up to 40 or more. It was nigh impossible to make a 100% correct, comprehensive video on addresses in Japan. It's mostly right, I can assure you of that. However, I hope it gave you a good enough understanding of the structure and the foundation of Japanese addresses.